Hi, I'm Peter Rose, founder of Longwood Currency Trading. 4 steps to trade Forex as a process. I had a student say to me about a month or so ago, you know, Peter, when we're talking about trading Forex, you're always talking in terms of process. And the fast track course is a process. He says, I see that now. But I think it would have been helpful, or it would be helpful, for you to do a video on exactly what you mean by process, because you talk about that all the time, but you don't tell us what the process is. So I take a few minutes to identify 4 steps in what I consider to be the process of trading the Forex market that my Forex Fast Track course goes through to establish within the student a process of achieving consistent and profitable trading. I mean, I don't see how you can trade successfully without having a process, even if you don't understand the educational terminology of it or the generic problematic solution process of any problem that you have, in order to start from a core base, identifying what a problem is, and then working through how you would solve that problem in an organized manner. I learned this through my 33-year career as a software engineer, and we were basing I was doing applications programming, not tools or systems. So the process that we followed was called the Software Development Life Cycle, the SDLC. And it was a very complex process in itself, but it led you through a process of getting the user requirements, maybe doing up a preliminary wireframe, going back to the user, codifying the requirements into a statement of work, and and just going through this long laundry list of stuff in order to get to the end where you you publish the code and the client likes it. In the long run of this discussion is going to come out to my process that I teach in the Fast Track program. And this is not a pitch to buy my course or to take my consulting, because I'm a sole proprietor. I'm the only person in Longwood Currency Trading. I don't teach hundreds of people, dozens of people, maybe 1 or 2 at a time, because I spend hours and hours of my time working with that person, because that's the educational process. So it's important to explain what a process is in order to grasp the significance of why I'm not teaching a lot of people. I love the process of trading, and I also love the educational process, because I'm a professional educator. I've taught martial arts, karate, and self-defense for over 50 years. And so I'm good at it. And I can help people that fall into certain categories of need, desire, and goal, and put them into a generic process that, because I consult along with the course, I can refine that in real time for the person to stay within the process, and yet balance that based on the person that I'm working with. For example, I'm sure you can understand that I'm going to be discussing certain aspects of trading differently to a 24-year-old than I would to a 54-year-old, because the 54-year-old's experience is totally different, but they have certain fears, predetermined fears about loss and all the stuff that they've run into. The 24-year-old doesn't have any fear at all. and he's ready to plunge in and go for it, but he doesn't have any experience to base anything on. And so the process that I work with the 24-year-old has to be different than the 54-year-old. And that's the educational process. But exactly what is a process? There's 4 steps. First, I have to define what a process is. Then I have to discuss, specific to how I teach, putting things that are going to be part of the solution of that process in a sequential order. And then I'm going to define the problem of the currency market and how I decompose that into the life cycle of a currency position. And then the 4th part is developing conditional-based rules to solve each one of those problems. So that's the 4 steps to trade Forex as a process. And again, if you don't have some kind of process, you don't have to use my process. I'm only picking out the highlights of it to make it simple, because I like to make things simple. Fast track is is only well, it's 6 weeks, but the whole thing is done in 3 or 4 weeks. And then it's a matter of the consulting and working with the student in order to make sure that they understand what those pillars, those nodes of importance within the fast track are, so that they can begin to implement that in a live trading realm. So that very early on in the fast track program, we're trading a live account, $1,000 live account. I don't care whether you have $1 million. I don't care whether you've been trading for 4 years. Trade $1,000. It's $1 a point. It's 10-to-1 leverage. Rock and roll. Let's go. So that's how I approach it. What is a process? Well, it's a specific series of sequential actions to achieve a goal. That's what a process is. A specific series of sequential actions to achieve a goal. That's not a Webster definition. That's mine that I just wrote down on a piece of paper that I've got stuck in front of me so I don't screw it up. A process is a specific series of sequential actions to achieve a goal. Now, what do I mean by sequential? When I discuss in my other videos that I've done, and over 500 of them at this point, when I discuss sequential things, I also talk about the permutation matrix issue. If I have 2 conditions, 2 things that I got to do in that process, there are really 4 ways that I can arrange those 2 things in order of importance. I can just teach point A, or I can just teach point B, or I can teach A and then B, or I can teach B and then A. So with 2 conditions or 2 objects, 2 conditions, there's 4 different ways that I can arrange those. So already, just with 2 things, I'm coming to a matrix of complexity that you have to be very careful with, or you get so much information and so much complexity that your anal sphincter shrinks up and you can't do anything. Or you have to think about too many things in real-time trading, and you happen to pick the wrong thing in the wrong order. And this is one of the major reasons I think the traders are not successful, is because they don't have sequentially conditional rules. And so if you have, talking about sequential and permutations, if you have, again, 2 conditions, you have 4 permutations. If you have 5 conditions, you have 325 permutations. So you see it becomes geometrically complex really quick. So the solution for the permutation matrix is not to have permutations of them. If you put things in order, there's no permutation. So in driving a car, you can't press the gas pedal until you turn the car on. And you can't turn the car on until you put the key in the ignition, and you can't put the key in the ignition unless you've opened the door and got into the car. So you have a sequential ordering of things that you have to do in order to step on the gas pedal. if you didn't know anything about driving a car, and I said, oh, you got to turn the ignition on, be sure your tires are checked, fill up the gas tank, do this, do that, do the other thing, you'd go crazy. You'd get in the thing and you put it in reverse and back up through the plate glass window of the Walmart parking lot that you're learning how to drive in. You must understand not only what a process is, but the things that exist within the process must be in sequential order. Based on that information that I have from my 33-year career as a software engineer using the software development lifecycle, I determined that in order to trade, I had to first identify, well, what's the problem? What's the problem in the currency market? The stuff that you're seeing people teaching out there does not solve the correct problem. The problem in the currency market is the position. And everybody says, well, that's obvious. Now you got to do what? Show somebody Bollinger Bands and Fibonacci's and London Open, and where's the sequential ordering? Where's the process in that? The problem is really the life cycle of a currency position, which has 3 sub-problems to it, which are in sequential order of solution. I have entry analysis, position management, and exit methodology. I can't exit a position that I haven't entered. I can't manage a position that I haven't entered. I have to enter the position, I have to manage the position, and then I can get out of it, because I'm going to have to get out of it. In currency trading, you can't just get in and stay there forever. You have to exit. Do that with stocks. Do it with a house. Whether you die or you sell the house, doesn't make any difference. At some point, the house gets sold. So the problem sequence has to go from the initialization of, well, what is the problem, the identification of the problem, and how do I get started? I know what the problem is, but how do I get started? And when do I get started? That's the entry analysis. The position management is, what is position management? In other words, what's the transition between the boundary condition of entry analysis solution and position management solution? There's a boundary condition to that before you can consider the rules that are in the position management of that trade. And if you don't know where that transition point is, you're going to be doing the wrong thing at the wrong time. Education is key to everything. And the best education is what you receive in college, because there are skilled mentors there in college that you can ask questions in real time of. And so when you're looking at the process of trading, and you're looking at that 4th problem, which is defining the problem to solve in this process, the way that I feel, it's a position. And it's the position. Well, what do we do with the position? It's Tuesday and it's sunny and the NFP's coming out, and so what? What's the process? Well, I got to figure out whether I got to enter the trade. That's a problem. I've got to figure out how to manage that trade once I pass that boundary condition between entry analysis and position management. And then at some point, I'm going to get out and hopefully make money. Now, how much money I'm going to be able to make is foundationed on how well my entry analysis went and how successful I was at managing that position to squeeze the most juice out of it. Each one of those problems in the life cycle of a currency position is in sequential order. Each problem, therefore, has to have one rule to solve that problem. Because in software engineering, we talk about being encapsulated. A problem is encapsulated. It only is, the solution to that only solves one problem. In order to avoid the sequential permutation matrix issue, you must have problems in sequential order, which puts the rules to solve those problems in sequential order, because a problem is solved by an by being an encapsulated problem that the rule can specifically address as one thing to solve. You don't want to solve two things at the same time. I don't want to try to learn how to play piano and guitar at the same time. Those are two different problems. They require two different rule sets. So I have 3 problems in sequential order. I have 3 rules in sequential order. And each rule is based on the conditions. And those conditions need to be in sequential order. If I'm going to, as I said, step on the gas pedal in my car to drive, I've got to have a series of rules that solve that problem. And the first rule is, can I drive? And the conditions of that is, do you know how to drive? That's sequential rule number 1. Do I have a car? That's number 2. Do I have the keys? Do I have gas? All of those are in order. If I don't have a key, then the problem's done. I don't go any further in trying to figure out how to drive the car because I don't have the key. Why would I? If I don't have, the next one down is, do I have any gas? Oh, if I don't have any gas, there's no point in even considering anything more. If I don't have a key, then I don't have to worry about whether the car has any gas in it. You see, you could have said, well, it's got to have gas in it first. But it doesn't. I've got to have a key first. That's my first condition. Why would I worry about having gas in the car if I didn't have the key first? That's the problem that most people can't understand, is that a rule has conditions that need to be met. And so the entry analysis of the life cycle of a currency position is the most complicated and has the most variation to it. And so therefore it will have the most conditions in order to make sure that you're safe in entering that position. Well, that has 4 sequential conditions in it. Those conditions are immaterial. I can tell you what they are, but I'm not trying to cloud the issue to the thing. The issue is process. And the process requires conditional whatever it is that you're doing. Rules are condition-based, and the conditions must be in sequential order so that execution of those conditions, you don't end up into a permutation matrix. So the 4 steps to trade Forex as a process are that, first of all, you have to define the process, which is a specific series of sequential actions to achieve a goal. Second, you need to understand that each piece of the solution actions have to be sequential, as mentioned, because otherwise you're going to have a permutation matrix, a mess, and you're going to have too much information unordered, and you're going to be unable to complete the process. The third thing, the third step in trading Forex as a process is to define the problem that you need, break that problem up into sub-problems that are encapsulated and therefore can have one rule to solve each one of those problems. And each one of those rules is going to be the 4th part, which is condition-based to solve the problem. It's simple. 4 simple steps that are in order of importance, sequential order of importance, that talk about the necessity of identifying a problem, breaking the problem into encapsulated units such that one rule will solve that problem, and the rule is made up of sequential conditions. It's so simple. And that's why the fast track course can be done so fast that you can come up to a level of proficiency in a couple of weeks and then practice that to make sure that the order is secure. When you're learning to drive a car, you just don't get in and learn how to turn the wheel and back up and go forward, and now you're going to go out on the highway. You have to practice this stuff so that it becomes intuitive. It becomes natural for the trading, so that you're not running an airplane cockpit laundry list of shit that you have to go through just to take the fucking trade. That you can look at the chart. I get up in the morning, I turn the trading platform on, I'm brushing my teeth, trading platform comes up, I look at what's going on, and in 15 seconds, just looking at that, and you do some multiple time frame analysis. You go through and I look at the 4-hour and the daily and where's things going and all that stuff. And then I look at a granular level at maybe the 5-minute or the 15-minute. Is there anything going on right now? Is there anything going on right now that in the middle of brushing my teeth, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to make a trade? If not, is there anything that I need to get back to or that will be available within the foreseeable future? That being within the next 15 or 20 minutes. If there is, then I'm going to finish brushing my teeth and do whatever, and I'm going to get back to the trading desk so that I need to check to see if those conditions have resolved themselves and we're ready to trade. Also, when I sit down initially to look at that screen, if there's nothing to do right then, and there's nothing to do in the intermediate process, then is there anything that could possibly happen, do I think, at all? In other words, am I looking at the screen and the price is already experiencing a horrendous amount of volatility because there's an NFP coming out or a major election is happening or something that's going to radically affect that? I don't even want to be in there for the day. Shut the trading platform down and go about my business. Go to work. Because the fast track course is designed for folks, normal folks that have a job. And to get that trading done in 2 hours in the morning. And that's why the course is geared to show you, look at the chart. And the solution, the conditional actions that you need to think about in that 15 seconds that I look at the thing have to be automatic. I just look at it. Is there something I got to do right now? And then the entry analysis comes into play. Is there something maybe that I'm going to be able to do within the 2-hour time frame, and I just got to come back to it and look at it later? Or is there nothing that I'm going to want to do today? Those are the 3 questions that I ask myself. And I solve that in 15 seconds because I know how to do that. And it's not based on intuition or experience or anything. It's based on following pre-trading rules, which are not part of the life cycle of a currency position. They have nothing to do with the life cycle of a currency position. They have to do with, is there anything to do today that I can foresee in the next 2 hours? If there's not, I'll go to work early. Well, I don't go to work early. I'm retired. But that's what you could do. The thing is geared for you to make those decisions so that you know whether if you're going to sit there for 2 hours, that the probability is very high that you will have something to do based on your knowledge and experience in the entry analysis that you need to go through when you look at that chart as to whether you're ready to place a trade now, or maybe you got to wait, as they say, wait till price comes to you. And sometimes you just look at the thing, you go, hey, I'm ready to go. Boom, and you go in. That's what I've done. In 15 seconds, I get the trading platform up, I'm brushing my teeth, I go in, I take the toothbrush out, and I move my mouse around, and I look at the various charts, and I see something going on. Holy shit, boom, bid ask, I'm in. Well, there isn't much that I can do after that except set my entry stop and go off and finish brushing my teeth. Unless I'm in the middle of an NFP, the fucking thing isn't going to go to my profit target right away. And I'm not going to be putting a trade on if I'm in the middle of an NFP unless I determine certain characteristics, and then I'm just going to sit down and trade. But generally, if you're going to trade NFP or producer price index or something like that, you're done in 30 seconds. I mean, on a 1 minute bar, price can move 60 pips in less than a minute. In 40 seconds, it can move 60 pips. I've seen a 1 minute I've seen a 5-minute candle, 120 pips. So if you get in the middle of that, you better be sure that your process is really good to identify what you're going to do and how you're going to do it and when you're going to do it. Because that's the three questions that you need to answer for each of the 4 steps in order to trade Forex as a process. Peter Rose, Longwood Currency Trading. Have a great day and have a great trading day.